Alright, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the TMossBoss Show. And in today's episode, I wanted to take the time just to put out a message to all small developers. And it really doesn't matter like what developer it is, whether you're a first person shooter or sports, whatever. Like any video game developer out there and you're considered an indie developer, please listen to this podcast episode, all right? Because here's the thing. I don't want you guys to feel intimidated by companies like 2K, Ubisoft, Activision. I'm trying to think Bungie, EA. Create that video game that you want to create. If you want to create a football game, do that. If you want to create a basketball game, do that. If you want to create the next big first person shooter or third person shooter or whichever, do that. But do not be intimidated by these big developers, because here's the thing. They've been developing video games for like 20 to 40 years. And where are they at now? Got video games coming out that can barely even get. Here's the thing. You'll see some of the most like biggest companies release a video game, but you'll see them games get like two, almost like barely even 2 stars on Xbox. Same with PlayStation, mixed or below mixed reviews on a Steam. And then you see like these indie developers where you got games like, let me just think of some titles right now, some indie games. There's this one game I just recently started playing called Surrounded. I think that game has been out for a minute now, but it's a good game. JDM, Japanese Drift Master, that's a good game. There's this game about shooting a wall. You're just shooting these blocks off of a wall, and overall, that's a fun game. I'm trying to think of some other indie titles out there. Let's see. There's this one game I was playing a little bit of. It's been not few days. It's actually been almost a month since I last played that game. But anyways, Darkest Days. That game is good. Lush Foil Photography Sim. That game is good. Schedule 1. That game is good. And it trips me out because you see where these games come out, but they don't get put on that same or in that same conversation as these like bigger video games. Like the crazy thing about it is that, let's say Call of Duty is like, we're releasing Call of Duty Black Ops or Modern Warfare. They're releasing some sort of Call of Duty or even an Infinite Warfare 2. Let that game come out the same day as Schedule 1. It would take a bunch of different content creators, because Call of Duty, you already know there's going to be a bunch of people buying those games. Why? Because it's a much more bigger game. But it would take developers on sending out copies, or just people overall taking a chance on a game like Schedule 1, where it would take people posting TikTok videos. It would take people posting YouTube videos. Streaming it on Twitch. The crazy thing about it is that Call of Duty has been around long enough to where they don't need TikTok. They don't need YouTube. They don't need Twitch. They don't need Kick. They don't need no social media platforms to promote their game. They're already a well-established title. And it's messed up because you don't see games like Schedule 1 get put in that conversation. But it's a bet. Here's the thing. The last few Call of Duties, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. I'm trying to think what was the one before that one. What was it? Was it Modern Warfare 2? I think it was Modern Warfare 2. It's crazy how Schedule 1 is better than all those games combined. And I know people are going to probably be all like, fam, how can you say something like that? Like Call of Duty, that's one of the biggest games. That's a much more better game than Schedule 1. It ain't even in the same genre. And it trips me out how it ain't even in the same genre. You see where open world games, they don't really do all that successful unless it's a game like Grand Theft Auto or let me think of something like, or the old Saints Row games, but overall though, it's like, yeah, and it's two different genres. But look at when Call of Duty, when they tried to do an open world style video game, that it wasn't even really open world. They just put you on a map and then they just had you run to whichever area you wanted to go to first to complete a mission. And I'm like, that was their attempt at doing something open world related. See, that's what I'm saying, is that you can see where a small developer can come out with a video game that can attack all aspects or all genres. Call of Duty can't do that. Because the thing is this, what they're trying to do is make a game like their old games, but in modern times. It's either you gotta make a modern game or an old game, but you can't mix them in. because it's Call of Duty is a living proof of why you can't mix in old games and new games. You either need to re-release or just to go based off of that old formula of an old game, or you just need to create a modern game. And it needs to be different from the old games. But it's like Call of Duty, they're, like I said, they're trying to blend it and it's not working out. So that's why you see where it'll be indie companies. Let me see if there is any indie first person shooter games. I feel like yes, Schedule 1 might not be the best. Hold on for a second now, because I was getting ready to just go to first person shooter. Let's go to early access and see. Oh, body cam. That I would have to say, and that it trips me out. Like, I feel like that's a much more fairer comparison. It trips me out that body cam, a game where it just only took 2 developers to create a game where what was that? It was like Unrecord or Recorded, whatever that game was. I did Unrecord. That's what that game was called. But that game, we don't even know what's the situation with that game. Developers ain't updating nobody. They ain't saying nothing. They ain't doing nothing. So really, at the end of the day, I don't even know if that game is ever going to come out. But anyways, Body Cam comes out. 2 people developed that game, and it's a good game. How is that and then Call of Duty, when you look at, and that's another thing where it's like, imagine if the people behind Body Cam had the same amount of money as Activision. I feel like Body Cam would have probably been the biggest game in the world. And I mean, at the end of the day, you very well can. Like, when you sit down and think, like, games like Fortnite at one point, using that game as an example, that was considered an indie game. It did get released as, like, a big title, but at the time being, it was like, nobody didn't know nothing about Fortnite. And then, look, they sat down, they went back into the studio, they listened to the fans, they gave the fans what they wanted. They gave fans control of the video game, pretty much. And now, look. Fortnite is probably, out of all the games that I've named off and all the games that I am going to name off, Fortnite's bigger than all those games. Fortnite is much more bigger than Call of Duty. The crazy thing about it is that you'll see Call of Duty do a collaboration with Fortnite before you see Fortnite more so like talking about like adding in characters from Fortnite in Call of Duty. You'll see where Call of Duty would contact Fortnite, be like, hey, let's do some season pass or pack where we got the iconic characters from Call of Duty and Fortnite. And it trips me out that it's set up that way where it's like, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, Call of Duty, it's like they haven't really came out with no memorable games in the recent years. I would have to say Modern Warfare, that 2019 Modern Warfare, that was probably their last memorable game. After that, Black Ops Cold War, that I would say that was a hidden gem. That was a pretty good game. I did like that. The story mode was kind of off, but I did enjoy overall my experience with that game. But after that, all the other Call of Duties, they wasn't good at all. Vanguard, I mean, maybe if I played throughout the story, then yeah, maybe, possibly, that might be decent. But I think I do own Vanguard. I'll have to check again. But anyways, but yeah, Vanguard, it seemed like the story was all right. Then with Modern Warfare 2, I was like, that game was flat out horrible. Modern Warfare 3, it was decent because they did kind of try to change things up with zombies. But I mean, it gets to a point where I don't know, like, it ain't that traditional zombies. It isn't like how they kind of like what they did with Black Ops 6. And I had to say Black Ops 6 is probably a toss-up between their campaign, and this is just my own personal opinion, but it'll be a toss-up between their campaign and zombies. I would have to say those are, but you don't really hear nobody talking about multiplayer like that. And the reason why people don't be talking about multiplayer like that is because of Warzone. Call of Duty released Warzone, and at one point in time, it seemed like it was a good thing. But then when you realize the damage that Warzone was going to do to Call of Duty, you don't see where they really focus. You see they have to focus on the campaign mode. Because people are going to probably be all like, fam, what is this? I mean, because when you sit down and look at Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, it just seemed like they were all like, nah, we just going to give players the quote-unquote freedom of what to do. But overall, it's like, it wasn't good. It wasn't good at all. And I like how this episode, it just more so became like me ranting about Call of Duty and stuff. All right, I'm going to say what I need to say about Call of Duty, and after that, we're going to move on. But anyways, but yeah, overall, what was I saying? I was like, I was talking about Modern Warfare 3. I was talking about the campaign mode. And then how Warzone more so destroyed Call of Duty, because no, it's like when you see every year when they come out with a Call of Duty game, what's the one aspect of Call of Duty that they focus on more than anything else? Warzone. They barely, I had to say, and it was crazy because it's like when you look back at like the old Call of Duty games, like the very first Black Ops, you look at zombies in there, everything was evened out. Campaign was good, multiplayer was good, and zombies was good. It wasn't like, oh, well, we're going to focus on multiplayer. We may focus on zombies second, and then campaign will probably be the like not the last, but that'll probably be the next thing after that. And then last we'll focus on multiplayer. And all that they're gonna really just do is re-add Nuketown and maybe like some maps from the possibly, I don't know, maybe Warzone or the campaign mode. But it's not like everything is unique and different in its own way. And I'm like, and I don't think Call of Duty, that's what I mean. They're trying to blend in old things with new things, and it's not working out. So that's why, and it's the only thing that they really could focus on. They're like, well, we know that's our moneymaker is Warzone. So that's why I'm like, yeah, with Call of Duty, it's crazy how like you'll see, getting back to indie developers, you'll see where an indie developer will come out with a game, or yeah, just for like I said, for an example, Fortnite, when they came out with Battle Royale, look at how successful that became, to where it pretty much, I wouldn't say that it definitely wasn't the door opener for Battle Royale games, but it seemed like after that, like, it just shut down that conversation of, like, Battle Royale games. Like, you don't really you see where other people try competing, and then that's why you see now everybody's trying to create an extraction shooter. And I just want to say to indie developers, you do not need to be the next big extraction shooter. Like I said, whatever game that you want to create, and I mean like actually create, and if you want to create an extraction shooter, that's 100% fine. But the thing is this, don't do it because that's what's selling nowadays. No, any video game would sell. Any video game would sell. I feel like the thing is this, you can make a video game about being a bartender, that will sell. You can make a video game about being a coach, that would sell. I know that would sell, because I'm like, you don't really see too many like coaching video games. Like, I think there is this one that I do have that came out like back during the Xbox era and stuff. I need to play that game, but overall, yeah, they can have it where you're being a coach and you tell your teammates like what plays to do, whether it's football, basketball. They could just come out with a whole coach simulator where it's like you're just coaching a bunch of different sports and stuff. Like today I gotta coach a basketball game. Tomorrow I gotta coach a football game, like American football. Then like European like football, soccer and stuff, and then it's just, that's like the whole game. That game would sell. And it trips me out how like there's so many different games or just ideas out there where you're thinking that's not gonna sell, and they end up being one of the biggest games in the world. So that when you look at games like Schedule 1, let's just see if they have, like, if Steam should have a section for, like, indie games and stuff. They got, like, the early access, but let's see. They should have indie somewhere. They don't have a section for indie games? I could have sworn they had a section for indie games. Nah, that's crazy. That is crazy, because I know for a fact that I clicked on indie section before. That is wild. Man, now that's actually kind of crazy. Okay, maybe let's see if a video game has like a indie set. I could have sworn though I created or not created, but clicked on a tag where it said indie games. That's wild, man. All right, let's see. Okay, like Schedule 1 might have like that indie section. Nope, they do not. But their game got an overwhelmingly positive rating. You don't really, and that's rare. And I feel like that's what a lot of people need to be aiming for when they do create a video game. And you see where developers, they're like, we don't care what rating our game gets. Let's just, Pal World, I would have to say that's an indie game that was pretty. They don't consider this an indie game? That's crazy. Okay, well, all right, let's move on to another game. Bro, I'm telling you right, Body Cam has to be considered an indie game. Dang, that game got a mixed rating right now, but they're not even considered an indie. Okay, let's just go ahead and just search up indie, because I'm like, that just don't even make no sense. I'm like, all these different games, Blueprints, is this an indie game? This has to be an indie game. Okay, there we go. All right, I was about to say, I'm like, okay, but anyways, let's see the top rated like indie games and stuff, see if there's any. Cuphead, I'm like, well, I feel like that's one of those games where I'm like, even though it might not it might be considered an indie game. I felt like that was a pretty successful game. Like I seen quite a few people play that game. I need to play it myself. But anyways, dang, they got like a lot of it. I might have to check out like the indie section of Steam, because they got like a lot of different games where I'm like, yeah, it looks decent. You know, Subnautica is considered an indie game. I feel like, and that's the thing where it's like, it trips me out how like a game, it's considered an indie game, but it's so successful that it's like you look at it as like a big giant title and stuff. So, and I just overall think that that's like what indie developers, what you guys need to do is just create whatever. Don't hold yourself back. Don't limit yourself. Create whatever video game you want to create. And I guarantee and I promise you, whether it's one person, 10 people, 100 people are going to play that, or no, somebody's going to talk about that game, and then that one person is going to talk to 10 people, and then if it's 10 people playing the game, they're going to talk to 100 people, and then if it's 100 people playing the game, they're going to talk to 1,000,000 people. I'm telling you right now, it's like people need to understand that as indie developers, you have, like, the ball is in your hands right now. And you're going to have some competitors where it's these big giant titles and maybe even some indie developers. But at the end of the day, I don't see no big titled video game doing better than an indie game. Where it's like, yeah, it's one or two developers working on a game, working on an idea, and then overall it's about. Like I said, I don't see no big giant developers going after it. At least not so much as going after, but doing better. Because it ain't possible. Not in this day and age where it's like you guys have, like I was saying, companies that have been around for 20 to 40 years, and then your biggest competitors right now are indie developers, people that just got into video game development. That's crazy. So, but anyways, with that being said, I will talk to y'all later. Thank you guys for watching and or listening. Stay tuned for the next episode. Like, subscribe, viewing this on YouTube. Follow or subscribe, viewing this on the podcast streaming service. And peace.